Sugar, if you've noticed a shift in your friendships as you've entered your 30s and 40s, this episode is for you. Let's talk about friends, foes, and the frenemies you need to cut off. Hey, Sugar. So here's the thing. When transforming your life, there are 4 F's that can make or break your ability to level up. They are friends, fear, faith, and forgiveness. In my book, Level Up, Living on the Levels God Intended, I dig deep into each of these areas. But today, we're going to talk about the first F, friends. And joining me is a guest that is very special to me. I couldn't talk about friendships and not invite my friend from way back when to join me in the conversation. Sugar, this friendship has survived time, distance, and a major fallout. Come on up here, Ashley. Sugars, this my friend, more like my sister, honestly. Ashley Harrison Weiss. Ashley, we've been friends since 1990, what? 93, 4?
Oh, yes. A long time.
A long time, because if it was 94, that would be 30 years.
A long time.
But that's a long, oh my God. Okay. So we're just going to jump right in. And in talking about friendship, I think we should probably start first with defining what is friendship. Because, nowadays, and we've talked about this, friendship is not as easy as it used to be, like defining who's my friend, who's not my friend. Because now we got all these different terms. We got a Facebook friend, we got followers, we got frenemies, we got all these different terms to define friendship. So for the conversation today, I think it's important that we just kind of lay down a foundation of when we're saying friends, this is what we're talking about. So how would you define friends, or how would you define friendship?
I would define friendship as unconditional. There's no need to put on airs. There's no need to put on filters. It is, I would like to think friendship is where you can show up as authentically as you can in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, that means that you may show up as your best self. You may show up as your worst self.
Mm-hmm.
You may show up somewhere in between. And you are given grace to do that.
Mm-hmm.
With your friends, or real friends, I would say.
Oh, you've already just out the gate. We already hitting all the things, because showing up as your authentic self, immediately the words that come to my mind is transparency, authenticity, and intimacy. I think friendships now, and I don't know if it's because we have so many definitions of friendships, or, classifications or level of friendships, but friendships now kind of lack that level of intimacy and authenticity and transparency that they did, back in the day when we was just, pinky swearing, and playing outside. But as if you're my friend, you should be able to see me at my good, bad, ugly, indifferent, at my best, at my worst, and everything in between. And I know that you love me through it all. I don't have to hold any parts of me back from my friends. Also, as my friend, you should be able to call me out. You should be able to, like, ma'am, come on, we not about to do that today. We gonna, in a loving way, and hide my faults and cover me. So if I'm out here doing the most on the least, it's not going to be all on, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and CNN News the next, so that's kind of, I guess, what I mean by the intimacy part, because in order to have intimacy, there has to be a trust,
That's it, the trust piece. And I think that, unfortunately, we all have experienced situations where our trust was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that may have shaped how we respond in future relationships.
Yeah.
And that's why it is such a blessing to me that I still have some of those core relationships early on where I can still be vulnerable, still have the intimacy, still have that transparency in the midst of, as you stated, some of these other relationships where you're able to give them a glimpse of your life. You're able to share certain things, which is to have compartmentalized. And it's unfortunate, but our experiences have shown us that may be necessary in the environment that we're in, that there are people who we may come in contact with that don't have the long lasting relationships that we have and don't know how to show up as a friend. So until you're able to kind of digest or determine that they are deserving of that or are capable of that, you have to kind of
Move accordingly.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, when I think about, my you guys, my core group, and I've never moved in like big giant circles. I've always kind of had, my core. I think about how important you guys are to my life, and I know why having my friendships are so, important to me. But I don't think a lot of people share this view. They don't see friendships as integral or important, to life. Why? And I know you share the same view. Why do you think friendships are so important, to our life and just our day to day? Why are friendships so important?
I think that friendship is important, and I'll say, speaking from a Black woman, it wasn't until recently, within the last 10 years, where we discovered the benefit of therapy. So your friendship, your core friendships were your first therapist. The first people that you were able to unload the emotional baggage of being a teen, college student, just that early adult life. And who I went to was my core girlfriends. And I think without them, there's no way I would have been able to navigate emotionally some of the experiences that I had, good and bad, without the sounding board, without those people to pull you back in when you were veering off, to even sometimes go down that rabbit hole with you and strategizing and plotting. They knew in their mind that you wasn't going to go through with it, but they knew how therapeutic it was for you to kind of act out that emotion or rage or whatever it is that you were feeling. So I think that alone speaks volumes as to why relationships are so important. Or friendships are so important.
Absolutely, you are, and I think it's kind of telling how we both laughed at the point where the things that you think about it just kind of go down that rabbit hole, and we both laugh because we've been down some rabbit holes, and be like, "Girl, look, just did it," and we'll just play it out and let each other go to the far corners of WTF, and there be no judgment. There's no, oh my gosh, you suck. What in the fuck?
Right.
And just allow each other the freedom to do that and know that we're okay, in that, what I'm saying, in that space. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Because I can, again, with us having been friends since middle school, that was that coming of age, discovering boys, my first kids, and all the things in between, and coming into, the women that we are now. You're right that you were one of the core people that I walked that out with, and and vice versa. So without having that, it's like we have a void, void there. And it's not to say that we don't have, our parents or, other relationships, but having your friendships or girlfriends that's, got your back through everything, like it's so, so important. And even now I think about it, friendships now on a spiritual level. I can send just praying hand emojis, and y'all already know what time it is. I don't have to necessarily say what it is, and you guys already know. I need my friends to be able to pray for me. I need some friends to be praising with me.
And you know that we're praying for you even without the praying emojis.
Exactly.
We've already laid everything on the altar for you ahead of time, in the midst of it,
That,
after it.
that. And by the time I think you said this to me one time, when I was like, this was recently when I was like, oh, I know sometimes it's just so much on me and doing what I do. You said, girl, you done already walked through quite a bit of it before you even get to me. So we just kind of picking up the pieces of, so even without me saying everything and vice versa, even without you telling me everything, I know enough of what to pray for. You don't have to tell me all the details.
Right.
You don't have to, so by the time, like you said, the praying hand emojis are sent, I'm already knowing, what's what, and I've already been praying about it. Now we're just getting into some specificities, of that prayer walk. So that's one of the things of why friendship is so important to me. And I think about the Bible story about the man on the mat. I think that's in Mark 2. I think it's where Mark 2, verse 3 through 11. I could, be a little off with that, but the story where the man who was injured or sick was on the mat, and his 4 friends carried him to Jesus, and they couldn't quite get through the crowd, so they went up on the roof, tore a hole in the roof, and lowered the friend down in front of Jesus. And Jesus said, "Because of your friends' tenacity and obedience, you are healed." So I just think about sometimes the number of times that, my breakthrough, has come, my healing has come, my peace has come, not necessarily through anything that I did per se, but because of the friends that I have around me that I know are praying for me, that I know are warring for me, that I know are standing in the gap for me, and, and vice versa. Sometimes it may be my time to be on the mat. Sometimes it may be your time.
Right.
But having that type of friendship in your life is so critical, because sometimes it may come to you through your friend and not just you in and of itself. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. And I think people miss that, so much, because I'm hearing a lot of people say, I don't need friends. I ain't got no friends. I'm good. I don't want, and I know that comes from a place of hurt, but it's like you're missing out on such a beautiful and rich relationship just by cutting off, our friendships, because they are so important.
I agree. And I feel my heart goes out to those people who feel that way, because like you said, that means that they've had a horrible experience. They never had experienced the joy and benefits that come with true friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's again, it's one of those things I wouldn't know what to do. Would be like, my friend, wait a minute, what y'all going? What I one of my friends had her husband is military and moved to Germany, and I was just like, no, wait, you're out of the country. Oh my God, and we just had to get creative in the ways we stay connected. But one of the things, even in that example and others, that I've noticed is that our friendships change as we get older, particularly when we hit our 30s and 40s. It's like I used to be able to just pick up the phone and, hey girl, hey, what you doing? And what we finna do today? Are we gonna go to brunch? Are we gonna, now it's like, when are you free to chat? Are you free on this time? Okay, well, let's schedule some time to talk on Sunday. And Lord help us trying to plan a trip. Like that trip we took to Vegas to go see us. She was like, okay, wait. All right, let's plan this thing out. Let's, and sometimes the phone calls get rescheduled. The trip gets, put on pause, or because life is lifing. Now we have responsibilities. We have these amazing careers that we're navigating. We have spouses, that we have kids. So there's more on the relationship plate than just friendship. And so sometimes it can be a little difficult navigating those friendships in our 30s and 40s. How have you found your friendships shifting as we've gotten older?
It's interesting because I was thinking about how people say the people are in your life for a season. But when you have friendships, it's not necessarily an ending. It's not it's an intimate relationship. Maybe that you don't talk as frequently because of the period or the season that your friend is in.
Mm-hmm.
So, example of that is that I am in the season of parenthood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have small children, and some relationships that I have, they're in parenthood, but they are in the second phase of parenthood, meaning that they have preteens or they have teenagers. And so, although we relate on the parenting piece, we're at different stages. And so, to your point, the availability is different. Now, where I may not be able to travel as frequently,
Mm-hmm.
they're at a point where they're able to travel frequently because their kids are more self-sufficient. They are either maybe at camps or they're at the grandparents, whatever the situation may be. And so you have to navigate those relationships a little differently. But those relationships are still thriving. They're still strong. Now, I have some of these new age friendships where it is like a season where we met and hot and heavy and we were hanging out and connecting. And then we either both or one of us transitioned in a season and we completely disconnected. Yes. Those friendships happen too.
Yeah.
And there's no expectation of reconnection. Kind of one of those things where they were there for the season. They helped me get through a stage, whether it was like people that you meet while you're pregnant and you both are struggling and you relate and you go to mommy and me's and birthing classes. And then once you birth your children, that connection or that need is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those are appropriate. I wouldn't necessarily. Would you categorize those as friendships, or would we need to put them in another bucket?
I would. I would categorize those as friendships because for the season that it was in, it was still intimate, it was still authentic, it was still transparent. You know, you was probably the mommy and me's or the birthing classes. You was probably talking about how this baby on my bladder and all those, all the things. So just because I think, and this is a really good point that you bring up, because sometimes I think we'll call someone a friend just because of the time. And it's like, just because you've known someone, you have that history with someone, doesn't mean that that person is a part of your destiny, but at the same time, you could have a friendship that might have been, like you said, what did you say, hot and heavy? It might have been quick, or you just met them right in that season, but it had all of the earmarkers of what we talked about before of an authentic friendship. Whereas that friendship that you might have had since you were 2 years old or 5 years old, there's no intimacy, there's no transparency. You got to watch your back around them. It's like we can't necessarily start to classify friendships based on these arbitrary variables that really don't speak to the connection, that's there, and the authenticity of the connection that's, you know what I'm saying? So I think I would still classify it as a friendship if it was, like I said, that intimacy, that connection, authenticity, that transparency.
But it was a seasonal relationship based off of the space and time that we were both in.
Exactly.
And to your point, I think those are still valuable relationships. And I find those to be, you truly got to find where he places those people in the right moment, the right time, the right space to help you get through whatever it is that your heart's desire that you've been praying for, that they were strategically placed there for that purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a big piece of navigating friendships as we are, aging in our 30s, 40s, and, on as we got good and grown out here. It's that you have to give people the space to grow. You have to give people the space to change. You have to give people the space to become, because we're all in the state of becoming. So if I were to hold you to the friendship standard that was our standard back in 1994 in middle school, how ridiculous would that be? But I think we do that. We'll hold people and try to lock them in time, and we'll say something like, "Oh, she wasn't keeping it 100 no more. She wasn't keeping it real no more." And it's like that's
You changed.
change.
Of course.
My situations have changed. The demands on my life has changed. So I think that's a big piece in navigating these friendships is that you allow people the space to become. You don't. Oh, she used to call me every day, and now she don't call me every day. Well, sure, it's a lot happening, or now she's walking, through a season. So I would say that's one tip I would definitely give to us that's kind of navigating this space is to give people a little bit more freedom and flexibility as well as yourself, because I think sometimes we will try to hold ourselves to a standard or a level of friendship that I think is also why people say I don't have a lot of friends, because I don't have time to be calling and checking in and checking on the friends all the time. Me and you don't talk every day. I shoot you a text message. Hey girl, hey, this and this. I'm feeling better. Or such and such. And you may not respond, but I know, okay, she saw it, she did it, then maybe after a week, 2 weeks or whatever. But when my spirit says, you need to lay ears on her. You need to lay eyes on her. Here come a FaceTime.
Right.
And because we're so connected, okay, yeah, let me check in. Let me let you know I'm alive. Let me let you know what's going on. So it's not that we got to talk every day or, we have found our rhythm and what works for us at this stage. Like you said, you have small children. I don't have any children. So we're different, so I do have I have a business. That's a whole baby. Yes. That is a whole child. But, you have to give yourself that space to kind of find what rhythm works. You also have to be upfront and real about what you need in a friendship. I think that's a big thing too, because if you want an accountability corner, then say, okay, I want somebody to hold me accountable. If you just want somebody to agree with you in an amen corner, or what, then say, if you want somebody to pray with you, say that. If you want somebody to party with, say that. It's also about being real about what it is that we want and need and expect in our friendships. Because it's unfair for me, say, to come to you, you have small children, and say, well, I want somebody that I can, take girls trips and go party with, and then me get mad at you, upholding that, So I think
It's move intentionality.
yeah,
You have to your point, we don't talk every day, but the communication is reciprocated.
yes,
You're intentional about your communication with me, and I'm intentional about my communication with you. And when we do have that time, you feel that I'm giving you that space. I'm not trying to do 15 other different things. Although those do happen.
though it happens,
It happens.
way all the things in between.
There have been times, but that's an intentionality of it.
Yeah,
Even if I can't give you my full attention, I'm gonna make space, whether it's I'm outside on a walk in the neighborhood, whether it's I'm running here to do dinner for the kids and you just in the background,
yeah,
or you're prepping for your next client and you're doing some things in between. Or we set a specific time where, we like, listen, I got some stuff going on. Okay, what's your schedule? I got time for 5 to 6 where I give you my full attention. It's that intentionality of where I know that you're invested in the relationship and you see it versus just someone telling you about it. You know what I mean? It's reciprocated. And I think that that is so key as you get older and you are shifting in and out of the ebb and flows of life, that for those relationships that you care about, that you have that intentionality,
Mhm.
that you set that expectation for yourself, not the other person,
Yeah,
because we can't hold anyone accountable for anything but our own selves and our own actions. So you be intentional and you communicate that. And I think that if the relationship is authentic, then that person will be reciprocal and show that same intentionality.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And you hit on something that I do wanna dig into because I know it's gonna open up a whole can of communication. And I think that's one of the things that we don't do well, just in general, in relationships, period. That's friendships, marriage. We just, that communication piece. And I think that communication piece is where a lot of friendships start to break. I think that's where things start to jump off, the track. If we don't already have that intimacy, we already don't have that transparency, we already don't have that authenticity. By the time that communication, I said something that I didn't, well, that ain't how I meant it. And then, well, wait a minute, why you take it that, and then, and before you know it, oh, well, no, I just cut off game is strong. It's done. So I think making sure that you foster that communication early and often is critical, particularly again when you're in your 30s and 40s. Not that and I want to make sure this is not taken out of context. Not meaning that communication, i.e., I have to tell you everything that's going on every single day, not that, but communication where I'm letting you know kind of where I am, the space that I'm in, what my life looks like right now, what shifting needs, what competing priorities, are happening right now. Where I might need a little grace, where I feel like I'm short, communicating on the things that matter, the matters of the heart. That's what I mean when I say communication, because when we are communicating effectively, then that kind of reduces a lot of the other things from kind of needing to see us.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to
And
tell
it
them.
just is that thing that you've heard women say, oh, well, I don't know what happened, but we just
Drifted apart.
drifted apart.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know what happened, but it just,
Exactly.
you avoid that because I'm sure if a conversation was had, to your point.
Exactly. Exactly. That, but that's the uncomfortable part, right? Which again goes back to the beginning of why that intimacy, transparency, and authenticity, and vulnerability is so important.
Mm-hmm.
If you're my friend, I shouldn't feel hesitant at all coming to have a conversation with you. Now there may be a little trepidation because I want to make sure I say it right. I want to make sure, not say, but if you're my friend, then I should be able to say, hey, let's carve out some time so we can really sit down and talk, so we can really, you know, and I think this was beautifully, beautifully displayed because again, we went through and had to walk through, in our growing pains and our pain of misunderstandings of what was this, so to where we just kind of did that drifting, apart. And now in hindsight, we can see that I had to grow and you had to grow, but God, no, that's your friend. Like that's y'all come on, back round. But even in us coming back round, it was a conversation. We had to down. We had to take some accountability on some stuff. I couldn't be like, oh, no, I'm fine. No, that mess that he like to do to just skate over everything. So I think once you have a good foundation of the other things we talked about, when it starts to get sticky and you have to communicate, it's a little easier to do so. So that actually is the perfect transition over into the I guess the mess of friendships, as you say, how people end up getting hurt because friendships are all good when Everybody pays their portion of the trip when it's an even split on the bill. And, friendships are easy here. But when it gets sticky, when it gets messy, when it gets don't go anywhere, sugar. It's about to get juicy. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday so that you don't miss part 2 of Friends, Who to Keep and Who to Cut Off. Be sure to hit the bell and subscribe so that you'll be notified when the new episode drops. Thanks for watching, sugar.